877-59799. If you want to call in, you want to give us a text message, you feel free to do that. We're broadcasting across the state of Arkansas. We appreciate that. And we also appreciate you listening on our digital platforms over at Facebook, YouTube, and at conduitnews.com. Interesting developments yesterday in the state of Arkansas. Many of you already know this, but some of you don't. You're just having your first sip of coffee. And maybe you missed the news. Senator Jeremy Hutchinson, I guess I should say former Senator Jeremy Hutchinson, he resigned from his state Senate seat when he was indicted twice. One count, or in one case in the Eastern District of Arkansas, on campaign finance and tax charges. And then, of course, he's been indicted in the Western District of Missouri over the preferred family health care Medicaid bribing scandal. Part of the Medicaid mafia, as we have called this whole scandal of $2 billion, and it's much more than that. It's just it's Medicaid entities and in general, not just through any type of expansion. So we've been covering that, and yesterday it was widely reported that Senator Hutchinson was due in court today. And he's going to be in court today, but then there was all of a sudden a new charge from the Western District of Arkansas. That's odd. So now we have 3 prosecutors going after Jeremy Hutchinson. This new charge, which I believe all prosecutors are on board, and from what I am told, it looks like Senator Hutchinson is essentially today in court going to change his plea to guilty, but I think he's going to be pleading guilty in the hopes of cooperating with the government on this new charge that came, again, out of the Western District. This charge has to do with accepting $150,000 under the guise of being an attorney to change the Dental Practices Act for an orthodontist. That's what the new charge is. Now, for those of you who are longtime listeners of the program, you will remember that this is not a new allegation because we sat here in this room that I'm in now and talked to the former president of the Arkansas State Board of Dental Examiners back in 2017. And back in 2017, Dr. Jim Phillips on this program said that it was common knowledge under the, it was common knowledge with dentists out there because, see, the thing is you've got dentists and orthodontists, and you have an orthodontist, Dr. Ben Burris, who was, upset. And I interviewed Ben Burris several years ago about this. He was upset because he was trying to be an orthodontist and be a dentist, and the Dental Practices Board was saying, no, you can't do that, and it was a whole big mess. It was a whole big mess. Well, so this dentist, Dr. Jim Phillips, he's saying, hey, everybody knows that Ben Burris paid Jeremy Hutchinson 6 figures to change the Dental Practices Act. That's not even why we were talking with the former head of the dental board. We were talking to him because at that time, Governor Asa Hutchinson had appointed somebody to one of the boards, one of the dental boards, had appointed some guy who was like he was more loyal to the corporate side of dentistry, these dental clinics that pop up that are part of a national conglomerate, if you will, versus the local guy. And he had appointed some guy who had a narcotics violation. Now, they eventually did not go through with his nomination, but that's what we were talking about at the time, is that Asa had a controversial appointee, and we were reaching out to Dr. Jim Phillips, a former head, and he came on the show. And in the middle of it, listen to this. Joe, go ahead and play this clip. In the middle of this, I'm not expecting the interview to go towards Jeremy Hutchinson at all. At about 2 minutes and 45 seconds, and by the way, you should watch the look on my face here. Go ahead.
Sit very well with Dr. Burris because he enlisted the help of a senator, Jeremy Hutchinson.
The governor's nephew.
The governor's nephew. I understand that this was a cash transfer to initiate this legislation to what we call open the Dental Practice Act. In other words, the Dental Practice Act isn't like any other law. in Arkansas, it can be amended, but it takes a legislative initiation of an act to amend this. We guard the Dental Practice Act because we don't want other people coming in and making laws that the dentists have to follow that are non-dentist. The dentists over the last 100 years have pretty well protected the rights of their patients, and that's always been the number one thing, is protecting the rights of the patients. Didn't have anything to do with making money. It didn't have anything to do with who was giving the services. It was just the patient always came first. We were always concerned, the general dentist, that if the Dental Practice Act was opened by somebody that was a non-dentist, legislation would occur that was not in the favor of the patient, and that's exactly what happened. The law was introduced by Senator Hutchinson. It was passed last year, and it significantly changed the Dental Practice Act that had been in place for 100 years.
Okay, that right.
Right
there is a lot.
Stop. Okay, stop. Okay, that's me. That's Paul from 2017. Paul needs to go on a diet. No. The present me. Okay, so this was all out there back in 2017. So you got to wonder, the feds. I mean, what is out there that you can't charge Jeremy Hutchinson for at this point? Is there something out there that you can't charge him for? If anybody knows, let me know. I mean, this had been a terrible month. We had the hearing to dismiss, and that's the thing. You got Judge Christine Baker, and she's got a motion to dismiss the charges, so they had a hearing on it. And in that hearing, we have Jeremy Hutchinson's former mistress, who reveals that he used campaign contributions to pay for an abortion, for her abortion. And we also had this gem, did you work for the campaign, ma'am? If keeping him sexually satisfied is working for the campaign, then yes, I did work for the campaign. This is what was said in court a couple of weeks ago. And so, excuse me. And so we have a situation that is fascinating to me, because Jeremy Hutchinson is going to plead guilty today in court for accepting bribes from an orthodontist. Let me say that again. Jeremy Hutchinson today is expected to plead guilty to accepting bribes, $157,000 according to reports. Now, Dr. Jim Phillips, in that flashback, he said, every six-figure transaction. Well, so he was right. I mean, if Jeremy does, in fact, plead guilty to this, then we have a 2017 claim by the former Arkansas State Board of Dental Examiners verified. And, yes, you heard it first here on Conduit News. Now, this is going to have other consequences. There's going to be other developments because of this, you would assume. Because the case out of the Western District of Missouri that involves a Medicaid entity that is essentially national, we have national stakes involved here. You have the guy from New Jersey that Rusty Cranford allegedly tried to have killed. That's why he was arrested. They found him with how much money on him? A couple $1,000, something like that, and some a revolver. And of course, Rusty, once they got him on that charge of trying to hire someone to kill Don Jones, the guy who took a plea a couple months before that, the lobbyist from New Jersey. Once they had him in the slammer for a little bit, then he pleads, and then he says, "Oh, in my plea, I bribed Jeremy Hutchinson through Preferred Family Health Care." Then you had Ravine Dran, non-drowsy Ravine Dran. He pled recently. It goes on and on and on and on. So, who is Jeremy Hutchinson going to give up is the question. It's hard to know for certain, but my phone was blowing up last night with people texting me, and they were giving me some names, some of them familiar. So we'll wait and see. I don't know. You're never going to know. But how much cooperation? I'll tell you this much. There were people last night that I would imagine didn't sleep very well. I'm telling you. Because, I mean, Senator Hutchinson, it was common knowledge that just talk to people around the Marble Palace. I mean, it was common knowledge that this was a pay-for-play guy. Just like it was common knowledge that John Woods was down there carving out a financial niche, and he was pay-for-play in a sense. You know, this was just the way you did business down there. You get elected, and you go down there to carve a financial niche out for yourself. So it can be profitable while you're down there or profitable when you leave. That's what tends to happen. And everybody knew that that's what was going on with Senator Hutchinson. And so when you have a guy that's, finally, it's like, okay, finally he's been charged and everybody knows, and you think, well, this is what's weird to me, is Hutchinson was set up as the big fish. Right? He was set up as the guy because it was so obvious, If we're going to have trust in our government and trust in our elected officials, we got to know if our elected officials do something and have this reputation, and it's not just based on rumor. We have facts. I mean, we have people, we have professionals willing to go on statewide radio and just say, yeah, I mean, he bribed somebody. And this is before we had charges. I mean, this is before you knew any of this stuff. This is just, okay. So he was kind of set up to be the big fish here. Well, what's going to happen now that is he going to cooperate? Is he going to give somebody else up? You would think the answer is yes, right? You would think that there is a significant fear of going to prison because that is inevitable if we're continuing to go down the current path. How is it not? I mean, look, you've got the tax problems, the campaign contribution. You've got that case. Then you have the Western District of Missouri, where he was paid a gargantuan amount of money to most people, and was passing bills. Not only was Jeremy passing bills for preferred family health care in exchange for extra money, but he was also passing resolutions honoring and thanking Tom and Bontia Goss, who now are under indictment. He was. Excuse me, I'm just a little under the weather. Anyway, he was doing a lot of things legislatively, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. New charges. He's expected to plead guilty today for accepting bribes from an orthodontist, and this is certainly not unfamiliar. If you want to check out that video, you need to follow at Conduit News. Or you can follow me at Paul Harrell 1776 on Twitter. Those just went out on both of those accounts about an hour ago, and so you certainly want to check that out. We're going to take a break, going to reset here. What do you guys think about this development? Do you think this means that Senator Hutchinson is now cooperating with the government? Will he give up more? How high up does it go? What does he know? What's he going to tell folks? Is it going to be, potentially implicating local Arkansas officials, or does it go up higher than that? That's kind of what I'm wondering. Tell me what you think. Sound off. Facebook.com/Conduit News, or you can call or text 870-275-9799. Back here in just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us. Joining us now again, we once again have State Representative Brant Smith is in studio with us. Brant, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Paul. Spent a couple of days down at the Capitol. Sat in on that hearing yesterday when the discussions on carrying guns in the state of Arkansas came up, and it was a very interesting discussion that muddied the waters once again.
Wow. So the just real quick. So the resolution clarifying Arkansas's gun laws, are they just kind of ignoring it?
Well, I don't think they want to admit that the legislature makes the laws, and that even though we tried to clarify what the law actually is, they don't accept it. And at one point, the ASP Colonel Bryant and the attorney for the ASP were even told point blank, look, your job is to enforce
Hey, folks,
the law.
it's me, Paul Harrell. I want to say hello to everybody out there who's listening. We appreciate you and your support, especially those listening on KFPW, the Marshall out of Fort Smith, 96.7 FM, 1230 AM. You know, for all of our listeners, if you ever miss the program, you can get us online at conduitnews.com, facebook.com/conduitnews, or our YouTube channel. Just search for Conduit News and be sure to click the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications. Here at Conduit News Radio, we provide you multiple ways to listen to your number one source for Arkansas news and politics. ConduitNews.com.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody. Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio.
Here we go.
With Paul Harrell.
So, the Arkansas Business publication over at arkansasbusiness.com, Gwen Moritz. Gwen Moritz has a pretty good story on this. My last interaction with Gwen Moritz was on Twitter when I made a joke about Davy Carter coming back and making everyone vote on what was the bill anyway. She seemed to think that was funny on Twitter. All right, so this is interesting. This is interesting because they named Ben Burris. There's other publications that won't name Dr. Ben Burris, who I think now is of his orthodontist clinics are in Florida. She writes that federal prosecutors in Fayetteville filed a federal bribery charge Monday against former state senator Jeremy Hutchinson, who will waive indictment and will plead guilty to it today. Hutchinson is also scheduled to change his plea in a 12-count indictment brought by a Little Rock grand jury last August. He also faces federal bribery charges in Missouri related to his relationship with a Medicaid entity. He's scheduled to change his plea to guilty in Springfield's courtroom on July 8th. So he is essentially cooperating. What does he know? What's he gonna do to stay out of jail? The new charge, or get a very limited amount of jail time. The new charge appears to be related to his relationship with Dr. Ben Burris, Arkansas Business's Gwen Moritz says. He's an orthodontist who challenged the states. Listen to this. He challenged the state's restrictions on dental practices, although Burris is not named. Instead, the information, a charge filed directly by prosecutors, refers to individual A, an orthodontist who lived in the Western District of Arkansas and owned orthodontist clinics referred to as entities A, B, C, and D. Burris has not been charged with any crime, and his office in Florida was closed when Arkansas business reached out yesterday. Tim Dudley, Hutchinson's defense attorney, said he did not know whether Burris would be charged. Listen to this. According to prosecutors, Hutchinson received bribes totaling $157,500 from individual A between February 2014 and November 2016, which was the time period during which Hutchinson introduced legislation designed to amend the State Dental Practices Act so that orthodontists could practice general dentistry. Stop. So I interviewed Ben Burris because I didn't understand. From a regulatory standpoint, I'm a limited government conservative. I think regulations, for the most part, hurt the free market. But you got these little dividing lines. We saw this in the last session, the optometrists versus the ophthalmologists. And by the way, the ophthalmologists are now trying to undo the optometry bill via ballot initiative. There's petitions going out. We'll get to that another time. But that just lets you, so you got the dentist, you got the orthodontist. I can't tell you how many dental friends of mine, when I interviewed Ben Burris, they were like, Paul, you don't understand. I had so many calls, but like, Paul, don't. No. And I'm just like, I don't know anything about Ben Burris, but he seems like he just wants to clean teeth and put braces on. And there's a regulation preventing him from doing that. It doesn't make any sense. It seems like Ben Burris, though, he was like, I'm not going to use the media anymore. I'm not going to try to actually, I'll just pay some guy to fix this for me. Which is exactly what a businessman would do, but you need to make sure it's legal. Oh, man, you got to make sure that it's not, let's see, but I'm telling you, it was common knowledge. Like, hey, if you really want to fix this, you pay six figures to this guy, and he'll let you clean teeth and put braces on people. Right now, people are getting mad because you're putting braces on people and cleaning their teeth. We want you to be able to do both, but it'll cost you how much? Well, the oddly specific number of $157,000, and throw in another $500. Why don't you? This is the state of Arkansas politics, really the state of politics in general, but it's really icky because it's all being laid bare. How much of this is continuing to go on? How much of this has gone on, and we have no clue. We have no clue. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. People want to see, and yet, after all this, and it's not just Jeremy Hutchinson. We can go down the list: John Woods, Jake Files, Mike and Neil. The list goes on. And yet, we didn't get the ethics reform that we needed this past session. I want to remind everybody about that. If you get anything out of this, I mean, aside from, it's the governor's nephew, and it doesn't look good, but the fact of the matter is, former Senator Brian King and the late Senator Linda Collins, they had legislation in 2017 trying to stop Jeremy Hutchinson from being an attorney and making extra money on the side, and Jeremy Hutchinson spoke against it on the floor of the Senate.
Laws. And I don't think that's set very well, but, to their credit, they handled every question to the best of their ability, but they were not going to give an inch.
Wow. Well, I'm going to go back and listen to the entire thing, and maybe we'll get some of the...
Be interesting for you.
So I want you to start from the beginning. You got contacted by a constituent,
right,
about the Arkansas School for Math and Science down in Hot Springs.
Right,
So tell us about that.
ASMSA down in Hot Springs. It's they just recently celebrated in May their 25th anniversary. Just so people know, the reason I'm involved with finding out really what's going on at that school was I've got constituents here in Jonesboro that reached out to me very upset at the way their child was being bullied, treated, ostracized, and a lot of that centered, it doesn't have anything to do with academics because it's a very strong academic school. But when a student wants to be involved in student government, all the activities, plus has a life of their own where they may run, exercise, work out, and then that student is considered to have some kind of a mental deficiency because they're so energetic, it causes parents to wonder what's going on with my child at this school.
So you're saying that there was a constituent, they have our kid down there, and there was some sort of disciplinary action taken for
Well,
active lifestyle. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because she eats healthy. She is participatory in so many, if not all of the activities, wanted to be involved in student government activities. And because
so
of
strange.
because of some of the pushback that she received, she was even told, you'll never take part in anything to be elected down here at the school.
Okay.
So they were trying to marginalize her for just being a
For being
top-notch.
successful?
Yes, because they evidently it focuses back on the privilege walk.
Okay, stop. What's a privilege walk? I don't know what this is.
Paul, come on.
Okay.
Aren't you privileged? You're a white male.
Okay, so
I'm a white male. I'm privileged just because of my race. But
so,
yeah,
so there's is that an official thing? A privilege walk?
it is an exercise that I've been informed that when juniors enter the school during their orientation period, they go through.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, 33 minutes ago, we have an update story from the Arkansas Times over at the Arkansas blog. They asked the question in their latest tweet. Let me pull this up real quick. Jeremy Hutchinson to plead out all 3 federal cases. Who might he give feds to shorten his sentence? So he's essentially, all these prosecutors are apparently on board from the Western District of Missouri, the Western District of Arkansas, and the Eastern District of Arkansas. He's going to plead essentially all of them. For what? For what? What is he going to give them to do this? Let's see here. We have, let's see, Max Brantley. This is so this is still from yesterday. So what did I say? Why did this come up 33 minutes ago? Did they have something new? They have something new to add to the story? Because I have this story pulled up. Hang on one second. No, there's nothing new here. That's nothing I could see. Anyway, that's the question on everybody's mind right now. And you got to wonder, there are people that are pretty nervous about all of this. Who else is he going to give up? I remember that Jeremy, I said this before, first time I ever met Jeremy was at that, it was when John Cooper won the state Senate seat in Northeast Arkansas. And he beat the Democrat. This was after Paul Bookout, of all people, resigned for campaign finance problems. And then that was the first time I met Jeremy. It was a big celebration. Everybody was happy. The Republicans were, they took a seat from the Democrats and everything. That was the first time I ever met Jeremy. And then the second time I think I ever met Jeremy, well, I had him on the show. This was in the wake of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act that brought all of the LGBT, RSTLNE, would you like to buy a Val community, down to the Marble Palace. And this was a bill that Governor Asa Hutchinson supported initially, all the way until it got out of committee. I believe the governor even got a Democrat to flip his vote from no to yes to get it out of the committee, the Senate committee, and then the governor was going to sign it. Well, then there was a lot of national media attention given because there was a similar situation going on in Indiana. And I believe Governor Mike Pence was still the governor there. And while the corporations got involved, and when the corporations got involved, the governor wanted to amend it, wanted to make it, it was described as, well, the original bill was a Rolls Royce, and we got a Cadillac. Okay, well, so it was a Cadillac of Religious Freedom Restoration Act, is what it ended up being. But the funny thing is, it came out of the committee that Jeremy Hutchinson was on. And Jeremy Hutchinson was later interviewed by the Huffington Post over this controversial LGBT issue, where they thought, and the media spun it and said that this was a way to discriminate against gays. It wasn't a way to discriminate against gays, but it was a way to not be forced to participate in what business owners believe is a religious ceremony. You wouldn't want someone to force you to participate in a religious ceremony or a ceremony that you thought had greater significance or disagreements over what it meant and what it did. You wouldn't want that, and so it's a personal freedom issue. But the LGBT, RST, LNE, which you like to buy a Val community, I interviewed a few of them on the street down there, and they were saying, no, actually, if you want to have a business, then you have to this is just the price you have to pay. If you want to have a business, you have to bake the cake for the gay couple, or you have to make the flowers for the gay couple, essentially. And this was maybe the beginning of the left. Now the left's anti-free speech and anti-comedy, like anti-stand-up comedy, because you can't say anything that's going to offend everybody. But we should have seen the writing on the wall back when they became anti-artist, meaning the art, the talent and the artistry that goes into making a cake or designing flowers, that they somehow believe they have a right to. And in a communist society or socialist mentality, that is what you believe. That's the whole point behind socialized medicine, right? I have a right to the knowledge this doctor has worked hard to attain for himself. You must give it to me for free. That's what you're saying. Anyway, it's just a completely different mentality. Well, anyway, Jeremy Hutchinson was the deciding vote in getting the initial bill out of committee. And Senator Hutchinson told the Huffington Post that he was a coward. Joe, will you find this article for me so we can show it? Huffington Post, Jeremy Hutchinson, coward. He called himself a coward. And so that was like the second time, I believe, the second time I ever talked to Jeremy would have been then, because he came on the program, believe it or not. He came on this show, and I asked him if he's a coward, because I thought it was so odd. And so he started getting a lot of heat on this issue from his constituents. And when he came out against the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, a bill that mirrored exactly, by the way, it was a bill that mirrored exactly what Bill Clinton and Al Gore advocated for in the mid-90s. So he then went to Facebook. I'm serious. You got to go look this up. He then went to Facebook and he acknowledged that, yeah, there are Christian business owners who are going to be subjected to marginalization, if not persecution, because of the way society's going. And when asked why he didn't stand up for the Religious Freedom Bill or why he regretted doing so, his response on Facebook was that it's not a bad thing because the church grows in times of persecution. And so he essentially was arguing to welcome the persecution, if not lay down and not fight what's coming if you have the power to do so, because historically when it happens, the church grows. Which is not an inaccurate statement, but why we wouldn't want to use our power to prevent that from happening is beyond me. And that was, I guess, my very limited interaction with Senator Jeremy Hutchinson. And, of course, now he's about to plead guilty to not just these new bribery allegations, but according to Arkansas Business, he's going to plead guilty to everything. To conceal the bribes paid by individual A to Hutchinson, the payments were identified as legal fees paid in the form of an upfront and then monthly retainer. Hang on a second. I want to see this article. So you found the article for me. Arkansas State Senator Jeremy Hutchinson, I was a coward to pass religious freedom bill in committee. What was this? This was back, what date was this? Scroll up. This was back in 2015. All right, scrolling down. Let me read this for a second. Where's the exact quote here? Because I thought this was so weird. After HB 1228 had been defeated 3 times in committee, a Democrat changed his vote and created a tie, which Hutchinson then had to break. Quote, I had yet to vote on it, period, because as chairman you don't vote unless you needed to make the 5th vote, which is the passing vote. And so when this Democrat switched his vote, I was surprised, as was everybody else. And in that moment, I honestly was a coward and voted party line and voted to send it out. After the passage of the bill, Hutchinson immediately began to regret. This is the religious freedom bill. I guess we should have paid. I guess if he would have been making some money on the side, maybe he would have felt a little differently. After the bill passed, Hutchinson immediately began to regret his decision, holding the bill in committee for 2 days. The bill later went to the full Senate floor and passed 24-7. Although the bill has since been revised to match the language of the more narrowly worded federal regulations, Hutchinson lamented his role in the passage of the original bill. Again, maybe we should have paid. Oh, by the way, kind of tough to take the moral high ground on the LGBT issues when you used campaign funds, according to your mistress, in court to pay for an abortion. We know that now as well. Telephone number 870-275-9799. Can we move now real quick? We've got to hear this. So the media has no shame in trying to take down President Donald Trump. They have absolutely no shame. And there is a lady out there who's got a book she wants to sell, and she has decided to claim that she was raped by Donald Trump back in the mid-'90s. That's exactly what I thought, Joe. I don't think Donald Trump would touch this woman. Now, it was several years ago, so maybe there's something.
Yeah, it's been almost 30 years.
But yeah, almost. Well, 20. Yeah, is it almost 30 years?
29.
Anyway, yeah. So. As of 1990, but so it was in the 90s. So we don't know. Anyway, what's this girl's name? What is her name? And how old is she now? Her name's Carol. Anyway, so she's written a book, and CNN, Anderson Cooper, of all people, are thrilled, Jean Carroll, are thrilled to give this lady a platform. And CNN wants, obviously, we now know that Google, by the way, is engaged in an all-out war. She's 75 years old. Google's in an all-out war. We know this thanks to a new Project Veritas video. We know how bad they're going to try to manipulate the 2020 election. And it's all on video. It's all out there. We are in a digital war. Conservatives are censored. Everything that I think it's going to be so much worse than you can even imagine. For example, if Joe Biden gets the nomination, all of those videos out there of Joe Biden making little girls uncomfortable by touching them, those are all going to be censored. You're going to be banned for posting them if Joe Biden is the nominee. This is what Google's going to do. And now Google is censoring Google. YouTube is now, they took down James O'Keefe's video of the Google executive talking about how their definition of fairness is not Trump's supporters' definition of fairness. Their definition of fairness is to look at marginalized people and voices. And so basically, her definition of fairness is to take the majority opinion and squash it with their AI and algorithms, and then promote the minority progressive opinion. It's very, very dangerous. So the media here, they don't want Trump to win. And so if somebody comes out with a rape allegation against Trump, they're not going to vet it. They're going to publish it. And so here is CNN's Anderson Cooper interviewing. Here's just a 30-second clip of it. It's very awkward. Listen to this.
Victim.
You don't feel like a victim?
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished. Which the word rape carries so many sexual connotations. This was not sexual. It hurt.
Well, I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're just going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
Okay, so there we go. Anderson Cooper cuts his scoop of an interview short. It used to be a time where taking advantage of the mentally ill was frowned upon in society. Not so much anymore. Not for CNN. Anything to try to make the president look bad. You're a very interesting person to talk to, Anderson. You're a very interesting person. A lot of people think rape is sexy. It's the fantasies, it's the fantasies. Can we play that clip one more time? I seriously, this is an epic fail. Play this one more time. This is the woman, CNN.
Victim.
Go ahead, just play it.
You don't feel like a victim.
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished. Which the word rape carries so many sexual connotations. This was not sexual. It hurt. It just
Well, it's a rape.
But I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're just going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
You're fascinating to talk to. And then she has crazy eyes, by the way. She went full crazy eyes after that, like Nancy Pelosi crazy eyes. She kind of got a Nancy Pelosi slurring of the speech thing going on too, by the way.
He's got to calm her down.
I think most people think rape is sexy. Is that like thinking most people are these giant racist bigots? Like, most of America is, that's what these Google execs think. And they're like, well, everything's about race. Everything is about race to these people on the left. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so I guess that plan by the Democrats is a massive fail. Go ahead and scratch that one off the list. But congratulations, CNN. You were used as a vessel to sell this woman's book, which, I don't know if anyone's going to go buy it now, but it's just really sad. This has got to stop. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure, did Donald Trump Jr. say something about this on Twitter? I think I emailed myself this last night as I was dozing off, as I was fading. So I was going to try to get some sleep so I could do this program. Yeah, here it is. I emailed myself this Donald Trump Jr. tweet. He had kind of had enough. He tweeted this exact clip that we just heard. And he said, wait for it, enough is enough with this BS. We all get it, media. You hate Donald Trump. But giving every Avenatti-like wacko a platform because they will say anything for press kills what little is left of your credibility. Let him do his job. The results speak for themselves. I think that's the way a lot of Americans feel. We're going to take a break. The telephone number 870-275-9799. Back in a moment.
Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Through what is called a privilege walk. And there's a list of questions. They line all the students up, new incoming students, and they will say, if you come from a family where you have a mother and father cohabitating, your home, take a step forward. If you're from a single parent home, take a step back. If you've got more than 50 books in your home, reading books, whatever, take a step forward. If you don't have books like that, take a step back. So by the end of the exercise, they have completely separated
The haves and the have-nots.
the haves, the have-nots, those with privilege and those that do not. I think one of the questions dealt with, does your family have personal transportation, more than one car? Take a step forward.
This
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Coming up at the top of the next hour, we're going to be talking with former United States Congressman from Colorado, a Republican. His name is Tom Tancredo. He's representing the organization We Build the Wall. It's the privately funded group that's actually building the wall on private land at the border, and they're actually making progress. They're putting down pavement for the Border Patrol, like to be able to drive their trucks like a driveway. It's incredible. Former United States Congressman from Colorado, Tom Tancredo, be on the program coming up here at 7:05. Joe, can we get this one quick? This is ridiculous. This is President Trump's and the media's this is their next play. This is their next weapon. This woman was apparently raped. According to her, she was raped by Donald Trump. Listen to how credible she sounds.
Victim.
You don't feel like a victim?
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished. Which the word rape carries so many sexual connotations. This was not sexual. It hurt. It just.
Well, I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
you know,
We're going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
The way she
You're
used her
fascinating
hand.
to talk to.
The way she used her hand. Think of the fantasies. She put her hand up this like an Italian, that's a spicy meatball. Think of the fantasies, the fantasies. What is wrong with this world? Oh, man. I wasn't thrown on the... It's so weird, so contradictory. I wasn't thrown on the ground and ravished or anything, but it wasn't sexual. It hurt. Well, it's rape. So, yeah, but most people think of rape. Think of the fantasies. What? Oh, my goodness. Anyway, we got a war on our hands, folks, when it comes to the Silicon Valley giants. I don't know if... I'm not this guy that wants government regulation, but I'm telling you, these are no longer... And I am less and less inclined to view these as private companies. And the reason I'm not seeing it anymore is because we all know the government has back doors to all these massive surveillance. They're massive surveillance programs, and we all know that the government has back. So you know what I mean? Like, just on that basis alone. But imagine if someone had the power right now You're driving down the road. Many of you are driving down the road. Keep your hands at 10 and 2. Imagine that you see protesters on the side of the road with picket signs. This used to be that was the old Facebook. That was the old Twitter. Actual reality, not the digital reality. And so if you wanted to see a message, if you wanted to see a protest, you had to actually see it. Now, I want you to imagine that there's a big issue going on, and you know about it because people are so upset about it. And you see them on the road, you see them on the sidewalk, they're protesting, on a public sidewalk protesting. Now, I want you to imagine that somebody is by just sheer magic, has the ability to make those people invisible to you. So you're driving down the road and you never see the ruckus, you never see the picket signs, you never see the people. You have no idea that this is now an issue because somebody has the power to just mute them. Now, if somebody had that kind of power in real life, we would all have a real problem with it. I'm telling you that power now exists because we now communicate on the internet. And they are all, most of them, crazy liberals. Not all of them, because they're going to James O'Keefe. They're going to these undercover reporters and they're telling them, hey, listen, they are not for freedom of speech. They are the fascists. They are the ones that want to censor ideas because they might personally disagree with them. They are, they're trying to force their views. And you say, well, it's a private company, so they have the right to do it. But you try to start a competitor to Google. See how that's going to work out. It's a monopoly. The government is going to have to get involved here, and I can't believe that I'm saying that, but it's going to happen. It's going to have to happen at some point. This from Breitbart News. Google-owned video platform YouTube took down a video from Project Veritas showing a senior employee at the company appearing to admit that the company plans to interfere in the next presidential election to stop Donald Trump. They took it down just as it had 1 million views. It had just peaked at 1 million views, and YouTube took down the video. It's still available on the Project Veritas website, featured undercover footage of a top Google employee named Jen Janani, Janai, stating that the company shouldn't be broken up because only they can prevent the next Trump situation. Quote, Elizabeth Warren is saying we should break up Google, and like I love her, but she's very misguided. Like, that will not make it better, it will make it worse, because all these smaller companies who don't have the same resources that we do will be charged with preventing the next Trump situation. It's like a small company cannot do that. End quote. This corroborates other leaks from Google. Earlier this year, former Google software engineer Mike Wacker published emails appearing to show that a manager at the tech giant told one of their subordinates that the company had to stop fake news and hate speech because that's how Trump won. They believe Trump won because of hate speech. Hate speech, like saying there are two genders, right? No, Trump won because he was talking about jobs for Americans while the left was lecturing us on pronouns. And, well, you can't use she because she's a he. You need to use they as the proper pronoun. Trump won because of decisions like MasterCard, which is now saying let somebody put whatever they want on their credit card, so when they compare their IDs, they're not gender shamed if their name doesn't match what they were given at birth. That's why Trump won, because the majority of the country rejects this idea of the radical progressive left.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
The officials at the school are the ones asking these questions, or is this something that the students initiate?
I think this was an exercise conducted by Res Life because it is a dormitory style.
Right. They go to live
school.
there. They go to live there.
And so I attended, this family here in Jonesboro asked me to go down and sit in on the visitors board, kind of like a school board meeting, an update on what's happening at the school. And after I attended a committee meeting or two, I believe it was May 6th, I drove on down to Hot Springs, attended that meeting, and the room was packed. It's a small room, but it was packed. Every chair filled with standing room only.
Is that because there's more parents that have complaints about what's going on?
Well, I didn't know that when I first got there, and I went around and greeted everybody, shook hands, introduced myself, and I did have my Brant Smith State Representative badge on, so they knew, hey, a legislator's here. When we got to the point in that visitors board meeting where Tim Barnes, the chair, asked for public comments or any new business or, discussion, people lined up to talk. And it was everything from one young man claiming, he was sexually assaulted by a student on campus 3 weeks prior to that board meeting, and nothing was done about it, to faculty members that had been mistreated and fired. There were lawsuits pending with some of these people. Parents stood up and talked about the great education their children got as far as academics go, but that they were literally browbeat down every day. There were individuals who discussed the privilege walk, as I mentioned.
So browbeating because of why?
Well, bullying.
Okay.
I don't know what the motive for that was.
Okay.
Other than it kind of spun off from the privilege walk. And I sat there listening to all of this, and it just got worse. But to Mr. Tim Barnes' credit, even though there was a limit set for each person to speak, I think it might have been 5 minutes, people were trying to get their statement made, and he allowed them, even though the alarm sounded, to finish their thought. And so I was really proud of him for doing that, because I've been in meetings where once you're cut off, you're cut off. And he allowed people to speak completely what was on their mind. And so the center of gravity, and we talk about that, I guess, a lot more in the military, of where the problems are or what the situation is and who's involved, apparently focuses on the director for the ASMSA family down there. And his name is Corey Alderdice. And, he made his presentation, but people they felt like he needed to step up and acknowledge that as director, the buck stops on his desk. And he made claims later that he didn't know about the privilege walk. And I'm thinking, you've got a small school. Joe, what is it, like 250 students max? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you've got a school with 250 students and they're all top performing academically, with ACTs and SATs, I guess, as far as the high school testing records go. But he said, I didn't know anything about it. And I thought, how can you be the director?
A privilege walk. You didn't know anything about that?
No. And
what about the sexual assault?
Well,
and what
that
you say a man got sexually assaulted. So how does
well,
that
an
even
adolescent.
An adolescent, yeah.
And the
but
parent,
a boy. So
yes, the parent. Listen, his testimony when he stood up and talked, he was trembling and shaking in front of the whole group that were there to explain what had happened, how he had gone to the administration and let
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey folks, hey, welcome back to the program. We got a special treat for you today. I want to introduce you to former congressman from the state of Colorado, a Republican. His name is Tom Tancredo. He joins us now via phone. He's from We Build the Wall. Former Congressman Tancredo, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Oh, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much for letting me join you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what can you tell us about the We Build the Wall movement and where it is right now?
Sure. It's pretty exciting, I must tell you. I've been in this ball game for a long time, especially, with regard to the issue of illegal immigration. It was I sort of raison d'etre while I was in Congress. So it's been many years that I have spent in this particular vineyard. But I will tell you, I've never been more excited about anything than what's going on right now with We Build the Wall, because it's actually something that all the speeches that I have made or articles I've written, this is something I can touch. We've done it. Yeah. And here's what's happened. Gentleman by the name of Brian Kofad, who is a veteran, a triple amputee veteran, decided some time ago that he needed to do something about the problems on the border. He felt that it was a national tragedy, and it certainly is. And he started a GoFundMe page that was designed to provide money for the actual building of a wall. And he was just going to give it over to the federal government. But then he realized eventually that indeed you can't just give money to the federal government for a particular purpose. You have to give it to the general fund and then, of course, spent however Congress wants it spent. So it changed into a 501c4, and it is called We Build the Wall. And you can go to webuildthewall.us/the-Trump-wall. And we have a lot of really exciting news there, because our first project is in where New Mexico, and Texas meet right at the border. And it is on private land. There's a gentleman there who owned a brickyard and right on the border, and he had been inundated by illegal alien traffic. They have vandalized his property for years. They have stolen almost everything that wasn't nailed down, and some things that were bolted down. And he had begged the Border Patrol for some help, and he had begged for a wall. They told him that the Army Corps of Engineers came out and said, we can't do it here. It's too, it would be too expensive, and it is too difficult because there's a 30 or 35% incline, a very, very rough mountainside, mountain called Mount Cristo. And so they wouldn't do it. Well, we heard about it, went down there, looked at the property, went and got all the permits that were necessary, and started building. Now, remember, I said that the Border Patrol, and in particular, however, the Corps of Engineers, said it couldn't be done. Certainly not within several months, and also with $20 or $30 million of expenditure. Well, from the time that we dug the first hole there on that property till the time when a half-mile wall up a 30% incline toward the end was completed with, by the way, more and better steel than is in any wall that has been built by the federal government. Theirs is a 25-year lifespan. Ours is 75. Better sensing equipment. We have a concrete road along the side that we built for the Border Patrol to be able to monitor. And the lighting system, if you touch that wall, the lights come on, it looks like a football field. The Border Patrol has told us it's the best barrier on the border, and I believe it. And we did it in 10 days, and we did it for between $8 and $10 million.
Gosh.
And so, Yeah, it is absolutely amazing what can be done. Number one, by private citizens contributing. We have almost 400,000 contributors. Average contribution $60-some.
And if they want to contribute more,
amazing.
if they want to contribute more, they can go to webuildthewall.us. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
So we're talking again with former congressman from the state of Colorado, Republican Tom Tancredo. So there's obviously pushback from this. The fact that this is even going up, drives people on the left mad, really drives anybody with an agenda mad, and they're probably going to make up reasons why the wall, why you guys don't need to continue. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be efforts to stop you guys from continuing doing what you're doing, right?
Absolutely. There's the last thing. Well, I mean, and it comes from a variety of places, not the least of which, of course, is the Corps of Engineers that don't want to be shown up. But also, you have to understand, and this is really, disheartening in a way. Corruption does not stop at a border. The southern border of the United States is a place that is traversed by people with very bad intentions and who are bringing every single day hundreds of millions of dollars, drugs and human smuggling activity through across that border. And I guarantee you, there are cities all along the border that have been affected by this, mayors, police chiefs, elected officials at all levels who don't want to see a barrier because, as the mayor of El Paso said recently, we don't want that. It will stifle a commerce. Well, yeah, it will stifle one kind of commerce, that's for sure. And it's the kind these people are being paid off from. And I hate to say it, but it is the truth that all along the border, we've got the town we had built in, Sunland Hills in New Mexico, town where this wall we just completed was built, is a town that had to be taken over by the state government at least twice, and the mayor had to be replaced, the city council, the police chief. The corruption was so bad. I'm telling you, not a lot has changed. I mean, they tried to stop us. They sent the police in. They shut us down for 30 days, said that we hadn't paid enough in fees, and demanded more money, demanded money for what they said was you didn't pay taxes on some of the concrete that you bought. I mean, it was just ridiculous stuff. The last day we were there was supposed to be a large celebration, maybe 800 to 1,000 people. We were going to have a big rally, the final day of build. But because they had shut us down for 30 hours, it still was ongoing, and we couldn't bring people in because it was an active construction site. So we canceled the whole thing.
Gosh.
And we went to the police, told them that, and the mayor said, it's canceled. That event is canceled. Well, we're all leaving about 6 o'clock, and there's about 10 or 15 police and sheriff's cars all around the perimeter. And we said, what's going on? They said, well, it's just a big rally. We got to be here for that. I said, no, we aren't having it. We told you that. There's nobody here. It has been canceled. You can go home. There's nothing. Well, they didn't go home. Now, the reason, of course, is because then they want to bill for all this police activity. But it's just an example of what goes on the border. And so, yeah, there's pushback, you bet. Yeah. And it's mostly from people who are benefiting either politically or economically from open borders.
You mentioned the sex trafficking, the human trafficking. That doesn't really get hardly any attention. Not that it should. Not from the mainstream outlets. They're now trying to say things like, well, a wall or a barrier is immoral. And they're neglecting the fact that, this human slavery that's going on. And there's no way they can take the moral high ground if the mainstream media were to actually report about the sex trafficking, which I think last reported is a $150 billion a year industry, probably more than that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're right. If they cared one twit about the morality of this whole issue, they would be doing everything possible to help us control this problem. And not the sex trafficking, but recognize this, that in the United States, literally thousands, and I'm not being hyperbolic when I tell you this, thousands of people have been killed, thousands and thousands more raped, robbed, other mayhem committed on them by people who are here illegally, who should never have been allowed in the country, and people who are in these sanctuary cities where they have been identified, they've committed crimes, they've never been turned over to ICE, and they keep committing crimes. They commit crimes when people are killed. That's another aspect. They don't think that's a moral issue. The fact that they can vote for sanctuary cities, the blood on the people who are killed in this country by people who are here illegally is on their hands, I will tell you. And talk about a moral issue. Yes, combine that. How about the children that are not just only sex trafficked, but for that they are used, they are recycled, they are hired, they are used because they can become the ticket into the country. Once you get across the border, you use the kid and say, "This is my kid," and so we can't, therefore our laws say you can't take them away, they can't separate them. So they get into the country. It's like a free ticket, and so the kid is then taken, sent back to the cartel. And this goes on and on. It keeps getting recycled. We stopped a group around in McAllen, Texas. Our little entourage. Here comes a group of about 26 from Honduras, and we get out of the car. And usually, through the experience over the years, when this happens, they all run, split, try to avoid being contacted. Well, this group, they keep coming right to us, walk right up. Hello, hola. Yeah, we're from Honduras. Where's the Border Patrol? We're trying to get to them, essentially. And they were two or three of them carrying these kids, others that are, holding hands. And we said to the kids, "Is this your father?" No. Say, and then they'd get scared because they knew that there was something going on, right?
Yes.
But none of these kids were actually the children of the people who held them. And so you want to talk about moral issues? Oh, man, do we have them.
Yeah, we have them big time. And it certainly is the situation down there. It's a crisis, and it's something that's been building for decades, and I think members of both parties are to blame for this. Again, we're talking with Tom Tancredo. He's a former United States Congressman, Republican from Colorado, and you've been on the forefront of this, Tom. Your book, and it was, I guess, a while ago, but you wrote a book called "In Mortal Danger: The Battle for America's Border and Security." And so I'm sure you wrote about what we now see today as a primary political issue.
Absolutely. Certainly I did. As I say, that this has been something I have been dealing with for now almost 30 years. And it to me, I looked at it as one of the most significant political domestic issues that you can possibly discuss. In fact, I ran for the Republican nomination for president in 2007 on this. I mean, I was never going to get the nomination. I was well aware of that. I was never going to be the president. But I had spoken enough on the issue and around the country so often that I had gained enough support to enter into the Republican primary. And so I got into the debate, and all I did it for was this reason. And my purpose was to make, I always say, the tall guys with good hair. I'm a little short, dago guy from North Denver, but I say all the guys with good hair, they have to get the issue. They have to understand it, and I want them to just utter the words border security. That was almost impossible. It took me 8 months. I was in from February to 10 months. I was in the race, and that's how long it took before finally I got them all, with the exception of one guy, and that guy was John McCain, who refused to agree that we had a crisis on the border, and all he'd say was, "I got the message." That's what he would say. I got the message, which meant nothing, of course. And he was to the bunch, and he was the one that got nominated. But anyway, the Republicans are just as bad in many ways because the Democrat commitment to this open borders is purely political. It's got everything to do with their future. They want to use it to help advance a progressive agenda. The agenda is to thoroughly transform America. And they know that the major a major point of their agenda is mass people who don't assimilate into the country, and will help in this effort. And they will keep them in power. Now, that is despicable, but it's logical in a way for them. You understand? They're willing to break the law. They're willing to take all of the problems that come with massive illegal immigration, and in order to advance their own political agenda. Bad idea. Bad. However, how about the Republicans, who have no logical reason? It's all greed. It's all based on cheap labor. The chambers of commerce who oppose any effort to close the border. People like the Koch brothers, who now are going to support Democrats because they don't want those borders closed, because they want the cheap labor. This is even more despicable because it's actually idiotic. It's a suicide pact they've entered into for the Republican Party, and unfortunately, with them, when it goes down, so will the country.
We're talking again with Tom Tancredi with We Build the Wall. Tom, on that, I think there are definitely interesting new coalitions that have been formed. I think that's why Trump is now the president, and I think it has to do with the fact that you did have this. As somebody in conservative talk radio, this is my 10th year in conservative talk radio, and didn't really know that there was this outrage about NAFTA. You would hear about it every now and then, but you have the president almost adopting what used to be in the left column on the political aisle, union-type issues, right, of trying to protect workers, but it really making that policy more of an international one through tariffs and through things like border security and getting better trade deals. And then, of course, you have people that just have a problem generally with having a law in the books that's not enforced, the violation of our sovereignty. Then, of course, the idea of can we take care. We have, I'm not somebody who's for an ever expanding welfare state, but if you're going to have these social safety net programs, they should be for American citizens first. They shouldn't be for people who are coming here illegally. That's the whole point of having a country. And so it's really odd that we even have to say really these basic things that used to unite us as a civilization. We're now having to run entire campaigns on them, and you have the other side that's completely opposed. And I think that's why President Trump was elected. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I thought you were. But you're absolutely right. And when you say what divide, these are things dividing us. I will tell you that I am so concerned, and I'm sure many Americans are, about this division. I've never seen anything like it in my life, in my political life, or even before that. I've just never seen anything like where we are in this country culturally. And here's what I mean by that. It was Vietnam. I'm not sure that I can point to a specific time. That'd be as close as I can come. But never before that was there a question, I think, in the minds of most people, certainly even most politicians, about what the essence of America, what it meant to be an American, our heritage, the value that we provided for the world in terms of a role model, what the founders had to go through in order to create this marvel. I think, personally, I believe it was divinely inspired. But there was no question about that. You argued about other things. You argued about tax policy, about unions, about tariff. Those issues absolutely had legitimate differences of opinion surrounding. Now, the argument is not about those things so much as it is, as I say, the essence of America. What does it mean? We have so effectively, the other side, progressives, have so effectively influenced the education system in this country, the pop culture in this country, so as to actually to have made this division far worse than it ever has been. So now that you've got millions of people who live, I want to say Americans, people living here who don't believe in the country, who don't understand it, don't have the slightest understanding of its history. If they do, I mean, the history they try to talk about is the Ocasio-Cortez type visionist stuff that makes no sense, but they believe it because, of course, late-night television and every single professor they ever had in college and in high school and even elementary school derided America, debased it, called us corrupt, that the people who started the country were nothing but white slave owners who were greedy white men, old men, all that stuff. It has eroded the essence of the country and created a divide that I fear. I don't know how to deal with that directly.
Yeah.
There's so much that you have to undertake, and you have to pray to God that we can overcome it.
Absolutely. I agree, and I appreciate your thoughts this morning. Tom Tancredo, former U.S. Congressman from Colorado. It's great to meet you. Please keep up the good work. I'm glad that you are working with this great organization, We Build the Wall, and they are delivering results, and they're delivering results that our government should have delivered for decades now. Thank you so much, Tom. It's an honor to meet you, sir.
Likewise, sir.
All righty.
Thank you.
Folks, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
The officials at the school are the ones asking these questions, or is this something that the students initiate?
I think this was an exercise conducted by Res Life because it is a dormitory style.
Right. They go to
high
live
school.
there. They go to live there.
And so I attended, this family here in Jonesboro asked me to go down and sit in on the visitors board, kind of like a school board meeting, an update on what's happening at the school. And after I attended a committee meeting or two, I believe it was May 6th, I drove on down to Hot Springs, attended that meeting, and the room was packed. It's a small room, but it was packed. Every chair filled with standing room only.
Is that because there's more parents that have complaints about what's going on?
Well, I didn't know that when I first got there, and you know, I went around and greeted everybody, shook hands, introduced myself, and I did have
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Special thanks to former U.S. Congressman Tom Tancredo for being on the show with us this morning. And we really appreciate the work he's doing with We Build the Wall, and a lot of you out there, especially on the Facebook page, are excited about the work they're doing. I mean, to actually see the wall go up, you know, and then see everybody freak out because they're being successful. So you guys can check that out. When we come back, we're going to give you the latest developments on the Senator Jeremy Hutchinson case. He's scheduled to be in court today to change his not guilty plea to guilty. There are new charges involved. We'll tell you how. Conduit News, we interviewed somebody in 2017 that claimed that Senator Hutchinson was given a bunch of money, 6 figures, to change the Dental Practices Act. That claim from a former Arkansas State Board, of dental practitioners, board member, apparently has been verified. We'll give you that and more next.
But people they felt like he needed to step up and acknowledge that as director, the buck stops on his desk. And he made claims later that he didn't know about the privilege walk. And I'm thinking, you've got a small school. Joe, what is it, like 250 students max? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you've got a school with 250 students and they're all top performing academically, you know, with ACTs and SATs, I guess, as far as the high school testing records go. But he said, I didn't know anything about it. And I thought, how can you be the director?
A privilege walk. He didn't know anything about
No.
that.
And
what about the sexual assault?
Well,
and what
that
you say a man got sexually assaulted. So how does
well,
that
an
even work?
adolescent.
An adolescent, yeah.
And the
but
parent,
a boy. So
yes, the parent. Listen, his testimony when he stood up and talked, he was trembling and shaking in front of the whole group that were there to explain what had happened, how he had gone to the administration and let them know. And I always assumed, okay, if something like that happens, these are court-mandated reporters. They should have immediately, before they did anything, contacted the local police department.
Right.
Filed a report, and then let the police investigate. Evidently, and there may be more of those cases, but they've not been properly handled by the administration. And so it just spun. I don't think it ever spun out of control, because Tim did a great job of letting people speak. I mean, if he had shut people down, there would, I mean, I can only imagine chairs being thrown or
so people
fists
were
being pounded.
These parents were very upset.
Yes.
With what they're hearing from their
and
kids.
Some of these parents that were speaking were graduates themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And one family had 2 of their children back in the school, and the mother had been a graduate. One of our legislators has 5 children of constituents in the school. And so, Paul, here's what I found myself pulled in, and my only point to go was just to represent my constituents.
Did you start investigating this?
We have, and I have, and here's something that I sent out earlier this month. But after that meeting was over, I walked out to head to my pickup truck, and I was swarmed by people wanting to tell me their story of problems. And some of the faculty have even come to me and said, we don't even have an
Bringing
HR.
you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back. John on Facebook writes, how to be a millionaire in Arkansas. Move out of state, make $1 billion, and move back and pay taxes. You what, Joe? Yeah, exactly. You got to be a billionaire out of state, come back in state. Now you're a millionaire. That's pretty good. I like that. Let's see here. You can sound off Facebook.com/Conduit News. Let's see here. Somebody Woods. Play the licensing board parody. Well, maybe tomorrow. We might have time for it later in the hour today. We'll have to see. Let's see here. We have some more. A lot of people responding to that segment about somebody saying the Cloward and Piven strategy being used. I'm assuming we're talking about the border. What else do we have here? Yeah, well, somebody mentioned sex trafficking. Yeah, I wanted to mention sex trafficking because that's the one part of the border that never gets discussed. No one wants to talk about these children. They want to say that the wall is immoral, that trying to solve this crisis is somehow wrong. That I mean, I can't tell you. There are some people that are openly advocating for no borders. You know what I mean? I'm talking about people on Facebook that I'm just kind of shocked. About the disputing the authority that we have to control who comes in and out of this country. I was watching some leftists the other day just absolutely freak out. It was a video, just absolutely freak out about this idea of, not caring about. They're claiming that we're pro-life, conservatives, and we're somehow hypocrites because we don't care about the kids at the border. It's like, wait a second, no, you guys are the hypocrites because you don't care about the unborn, and then you have this caring for all of these reports that are out there but about the conditions that the kids are living in, and you have Alexander Ocasio-Cortez. It's a concentration camp. There's just a lot of intellectual consistency out there, quite frankly. But nobody wants to talk about the human trafficking going on at the southern border. Nobody really wants to talk about that in the mainstream media. Because if they were, they know that the American people that are listening to CNN to get their news still would be like, oh, this is a big deal. This is an issue. Sex trafficking, $150 billion a year industry that we know about. It's disturbing, and it is the modern-day slavery. People don't talk about it. And it's even in your local communities. It's just hush-hush. Congressman Rick Crawford, Congressman Rick Crawford in Jonesboro held an event a couple months ago about the prevalency of human trafficking in local communities. And it's very hush-hush. We have your meme of the day coming. We'll get to that later before the show is over today, so you certainly want to stay tuned for that. We have the slogan up on our screen for this week: an uncomfortable truth is better than a comfortable lie. Let's get to the truth, the updates here. Arkansas Business, I think, has the simplest write-up about this. Gwen Moritz has the simplest write-up over at Arkansas Business. Headline: Jeremy Hutchinson to plead guilty to accepting bribes from an orthodontist. Federal prosecutors in Fayetteville filed a federal bribery charge Monday. Listen as she writes, Hutchinson is scheduled today to change his plea in a 12-count indictment brought by a Little Rock grand jury last August. So he's presumably going to change that plea to guilty. He also faces a federal bribery charge in Missouri related to his relationship with a Medicaid provider. He's scheduled to change his plea to guilty in that case on July the 8th. Then we have this new charge that appeared yesterday, and it has to do with his relationship with Dr. Ben Burris, who used to live in Fayetteville and now lives in Florida. Burris is not named. Burris has not been charged with the crime. It goes on, though, to say in the charges, it refers to an individual A, an orthodontist who lived in the Western District of Arkansas and owned orthodontist clinics. Burris has not been charged. According to prosecutors, Hutchinson received bribes totaling $157,500 from individual A between February 2014 and November 2016, which was the time period during which Hutchinson introduced legislation designed to amend the Dental Practices Act so that orthodontists could practice general dentistry. You have to remember, and I interviewed Ben Burris, Dr. Ben Burris at the time. He reached out because he lived in Jonesboro for a time. He lived in Jonesboro, then moved to Fayetteville. Now he lives in Florida. And I interviewed him because I didn't understand why there was a regulation, and I still don't, quite frankly, but I'm sure there are dentists that'll tell me. But I don't understand why a guy who wants to put braces on somebody's teeth and is also already trained to be a dentist can't do both. Can't clean teeth, do a dental, do something that dentists do and be an orthodontist. I don't understand why. I mean, it seems like you could package deals together and, you'd be better for the consumer. I mean, that's what I'm looking at for the consumer. The dentists are going to say no, the patients and everything else, but okay. I'm seeing that point. But I had a problem, and I was like, hey, Ben, this is ridiculous that we have this regulatory board that's giving you a hard time. But I had no clue that Ben was just going to be like, you know what, I'm done with this, and decide to pay off Jeremy Hutchinson so that then he would change the law to where he would be able to put braces on people's teeth and clean their teeth at the same time. I had no idea that was the route he was going to take. But it was common knowledge that that's what you did if you wanted to get a law passed, that there was a way to pay to get a law changed. And that's illegal. And just because you're an attorney doesn't mean, there is a loophole as long as the contract between the private citizen paying the attorney legislator and the attorney, as long as that contract says this is not for lobbying services, then you're good, right? Because it says it in the contract, and yet things get done anyway. Here's a flashback clip. Here is me. Joe, cue this up for me. Here is me interviewing the former president of the Arkansas State Board of Dental Examiners. We want to go to 2 minutes and 45 seconds. I tweeted this out at Paul Harrell 1776. Also follow at Conduit News. They retweeted it. And go ahead and cue this up. This is me interviewing Dr. Jim Phillips in, I'm assuming, November or December of 2017, because I have a Christmas wreath up in the background. Flashback to the old whiteboard days. Establishment lives forever is what that says. What, is that not what it says? Establishment lives for power. Okay, yeah. Establishment lives for power. Thank you, Joe. That's what it said. How fitting that's the whiteboard. And I want to be clear here. In this flashback clip, I'm talking with Dr. Jim Phillips, again, the past president of the Arkansas State Board for Dental Examiners. I'm talking to him not because of Jeremy Hutchinson. I'm talking to him because the governor at the time had appointed a member to the dental board who had some narcotics violations in the 90s and who got past a vetting process that was very lenient, and it made dentists very upset because they didn't go through with the appointee. But the reason it was news is because the dentists they don't want these corporate dentists to have a say, right? These ones who are representatives of the larger national chains that go into states and pop up dental clinics, right? That are it's kind of like fighting the Walmartization of optometry, or you know what I'm saying? They're trying to fight that, dentists are, and that's why they didn't like the fact that the governor was going to appoint somebody connected to a big money organization. That's why we were covering on the program back in 2017, because it was in relationship with the Arkansas State Plant Board, because there just seemed to be these battles between these regulatory boards and the governor, and that's why we were highlighting that. And you got to watch the look on my face when Dr. Jim Phillips launches in to Jeremy Hutchinson taking a bribe, again, back in 2017, and who knew that this was going to be the thing that he actually pleads guilty to, that, kind of brings the whole thing to some sort of conclusion, and who is Jeremy Hutchinson now going to be giving up to the feds in this now apparent cooperation? Listen, flashback, 2017.
Well, apparently this didn't sit very well with Dr. Burris, because he enlisted the help of a senator, Jeremy Hutchinson.
The governor's nephew.
I understand that this was a cash transfer to initiate this legislation to what we call open the Dental Practice Act. In other words, the Dental Practice Act is like any other law in Arkansas. It can be amended, but it takes a legislative initiation of an act to amend this. We guard the Dental Practice Act because we don't want other people coming in and making laws that the dentists have to follow that are non-dentist. The dentists over the last 100 years have pretty well protected the rights of their patients, and that's always been the number one thing, is protecting the rights of the patients. Didn't have anything to do with making money. It didn't have anything to do with who was, giving the services. It was just the patient that always came first. We were always concerned, the general dentist, that if the Dental Practice Act was opened by somebody that was a non-dentist, legislation would occur that was not in the favor of the patient, and that's exactly what happened. The law was introduced by Senator Hutchinson. It was passed last year, and it significantly changed the Dental Practice Act that had been in place for 100 years.
Okay, that right there is a lot. So what? How did that law? So you're saying something was changed in the law that affected the governor's power and authority to reject or accept what the recommendation of the Dental Association is?
That's exactly right. The original law, again, the one we're working under, was initiated in 1955, stated that the governor would appoint the members of the State Board of Dental Examiners on advice and consent of the separate districts. For instance, we vetted Lauren Harmon, who is a wonderful general dentist here.
That's who
to
they
be
wanted.
our representative to the state board this term. The terms are 5 years. She actually took time out of our practice to went and sit in on some of the state board meetings to prepare herself, and then we got the notice that she was not going to serve. So the new law that was sponsored by Senator Jeremy Hutchinson reversed the way the assignments were made, where the governor on his own can just decide without the advice and consent of the district.
Okay, so the next question then would be, we're talking, by the way, with Dr. Jim Phillips, past president of the Arkansas State Board of Dental Examiners. The next question would be then, why would the governor? I understand now he has the power because of legislative
All right, stop.
maneuvering, but why would he?
Ooh, okay. Now, it's not necessarily what it seems here. I mean, it's not conclusive. All that means is that, and again, this is according to the past president of the Arkansas State Board, his understanding was that when Jeremy Hutchinson was paid $157,000 to change the Dental Practices Act, he changed it to where Ben Burris apparently was going to be able to clean teeth and put braces on somebody at the same time, or offer both services. And they also changed it, which when you change legislation, don't jump to conclusions. Obviously, anytime you open up legislation to change, there's going to be other people that have input that may be completely separate from the bribe. They may not even know that it's going on. So if you're going to open up the Dental Practices Act, Jeremy Hutchinson was paid to do his part, and then somebody else might have come in. I don't know. They might have come in and been like, hey, also we want to give the governor more authority here. Well, if we're going to do this, might as well give the governor more authority. Okay, that doesn't mean that there was anybody was in on it. And what I mean by this doesn't mean that doesn't directly, it's not like a smoking gun against the governor. All right? I just want to, before anybody out there jumps to conclusions. So, but it doesn't look good. I mean, yeah, it doesn't look good. We could definitely say that it doesn't look good. Anyway, so we're going to take a break, going to reset here. But that was, again, a flashback of 2017, my interview with Dr. Jim Phillips. We were just talking about an appointee to a board, and a qualified one that was passed up for an unqualified one that had narcotics violations in terms of prescribing too many narcotics. And again, they did pull that appointee, and they went with somebody else. But still, I had no idea that he was going to drop that bombshell that Jeremy Hutchinson, and it was common knowledge that he was paid six figures to change the dental practice. I have no idea. And now Jeremy Hutchinson is scheduled to be in court and to plead guilty to this new charge, to change his plea, and he's going to change his plea according to the Arkansas Business Report, July 8th in the Western District of Missouri with the Medicaid entity, Preferred Family Health Care, and how he was bribed $9,000 a month there. Crazy times we live in. We got to take a break. Back in a minute.
Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799.
Program here that addresses grievances. And if we do try to mention a grievance, we are berated and made to think you're about to lose your job. And some of them have down there. But I sent this out to 8 colleagues this month. I'll just read it real quickly. Good morning, colleagues. Please forward this message on to any other legislators you may know who are interested in the ASMSA situation. As mentioned, we need to have a closed-door meeting to determine what needs to happen legislatively next. We need to separate fact from fiction and talk about what we are hearing from our constituents who have children at the school. I'm open to possible dates where we can all be in Little Rock. Please let me know your thoughts. After I sent that out,
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, welcome back, folks. Thanks so much for being with us today. As we wind down the show, we're going to get to your meme of the day here in just a moment. I want to welcome back to the program friend Mr. Josh Waters is on the line. Hey, Josh, how you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing okay, Paul. How are y'all this morning?
I'm doing good. Real quick, your reaction to this news about Jeremy Hutchinson?
Man, it's, the first thing when I heard about this yesterday, Paul, I think I texted you. I was like, didn't this come out on your show like a year and a half ago? And I know you replayed this earlier, and in fact it did. And it's just crazy stuff that's talked about a year or two ago. It's just now coming out. And
and I even referenced it. I referenced this like a week or two ago.
Yeah.
I just it came into my head and I referenced it, and now here it is. So it's crazy. Well, Josh, I want to get to it. I know. I want to have you on to talk about your future, where you're headed next. I know you're leaving Conduit, and I just wanted to say I love you, brother, and I wanted to give you a chance to come on the program and talk to everybody.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I have resigned from working from Conduit. I let them know a couple weeks ago. Was able to get the scorecard done, some articles. So it was just a good time. So I'll be pursuing some opportunities. Look forward to sharing those with people in the future. But, did want to come on and thank the listeners. It's been great to get to know so many people around the state who've been working even, much longer than I have in this fight for more economic freedom, more liberty here in the state of Arkansas. So I appreciate all the work they do. I want to say thank you to the Conduit co-founders, Joe Maynard and Brenda Vassar-Taylor, for the opportunity. I've learned a lot from them. And really got to know them back in 2014 when I was a law clerk. So it's been a good ride. And I want to thank you, Paul, and all the work that you do. It feels weird saying this. I'm not going to be around. But, I'll still be around and be in touch and just want to encourage all the listeners to stay in the fight for liberty, speaking truth to power. And also, I want to give a shout-out to David Ferguson. It's been great working with him. I've learned so much from him. And then also Kerry Meyer, kind of behind-the-scenes person over at Political Strategies, project manager that helps on a lot of things. So it's a team effort. Enjoyed my time. But, yeah, it's, time to move on, and we have seasons of life, and I've enjoyed this season.
That's great. Well, I've enjoyed getting to know you as well, Josh, and your work and your mind on policy is unlike no other, and I know you're going to do great things. And just keep us posted and stay in touch, and really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Paul.
All righty, Josh Waters, everybody. I'm sure we might be talking to him again in the future. Who knows? Who knows? I do have a statement here from Brenda Vassar-Taylor, the co-founder of Conduit Organizations. She writes, "It's been our pleasure at Conduit for the last 2.5 years to work with Josh Waters as an executive director. Josh recently informed us of his decision to make a career change. Though we will miss him and his excellent work, we are always happy to see our people make decisions and changes to advance their own personal goals and aspirations. This is such a move for Josh. Our work together has been a great experience for all concerned, and it is our belief that even the Marble Palace will fondly recall its time with Roll Call Josh." Josh Roll Call Waters. That is exactly right. All right, folks, let's get to your meme of the day. Here it is. It's Instagram at conservative memes. Yeah, this is the same person. Sometimes we have. Do we have dank conservative memes or there seems to be a recycling of the best meme lords. All right, here we go. It's what are they afraid of? Well, a vampire is afraid of sunlight. A Superman is afraid of kryptonite, and a transgender person is afraid of basic biology. Check out the meme of the day. You can do that at Conduit News. Follow us on Twitter at Conduit News, as well as Facebook.com/Conduit News. Go to that Facebook page, like it or follow it, whatever you do now on Facebook. But the YouTube channel as well. Go ahead and subscribe to that and click the little bell to receive notifications so you get the smaller videos. And also up at Conduit News, if you wanted to share this latest article, we told you about it yesterday, but it has been cross-posted over at conduitnews.com if you want to share it with your friends. Pretty fascinating that we're now on course to raise spending in Arkansas over the next 8 years by $1 billion. Not 8 years from now, but when Governor Asa Hutchinson's term is complete. Headline: Governor Asa Hutchinson on pace for $1 billion spending increase in 2 terms. And you see it here. And who knows, there's been some speculation. I don't know if this is, completely accurate, but some speculation brought to my attention that some of these budget projections on the increase for like 2020 and 2021 might actually be higher. I mean, you never know what the revenues are. But what we know is that in 2016, we had an increase of $128 million, $143 million in 2017, $163 million, then $173 million in 2019. For fiscal year 2020, which starts July 1st when our internet sales tax kicks in, $124 million increase in 2021, $128 million. That's an average yearly increase of $143 million. So if you add in the average yearly increase for the past 2 fiscal years, we got a total increase in state government of $1.15 billion for 8 years. That is what we are on pace to hit. And there are some that are going to say, well, that's normal. That's totally. I don't think it's normal. I mean, I don't see how we can say that's normal at all. But some I'm sure will say that. Anyway, and stay tuned. We will see what happens tomorrow on the program. We'll have continuing coverage on what former Senator Jeremy Hutchinson is actually going to do in court. If you're just joining us, the news is that he is going to plead guilty to being bribed by an orthodontist to change the Dental Practices Act. He was paid $157,000. It's also reported that he's going to change his not guilty plea in the campaign finance indictment, where we found out a couple of weeks ago, according to his mistress, at least the allegation was raised that there was an abortion that was paid for with campaign funds. And we're also told he's going to change his plea on July the 8th. July the 8th up in Missouri, where they're doing the preferred family health care Medicaid mafia, where he was being bribed there. According to guilty pleas, they said that Rusty Cranford said he bribed Jeremy Hutchinson. So the real question is this. Well, we're going to report on what happens tomorrow, but who is Jeremy Hutchinson going to give them? He's obviously going to be changing his pleas to guilty, but for what? For leniency, for what? He's got to give them something. So who is Jeremy Hutchinson going to be giving up by taking these pleas? Time will only tell. Folks, thanks so much for being with us. Arkansas, have a great day, and we'll see you here tomorrow with bells on. Be safe.